Okay, we're back in the garage, and you can see I cleaned it up a little bit for you guys. You're welcome. Remember what we talked about? We're going to put those gauges on in place of the ones that are on here. So next we got to take these off. So first, the fairing, the little quarter fairing has to come off. We'll take off the headlight, and then the gauges. And I'll get back to you when I got all that stuff done. Okay, that was a whole lot easier than I expected it to be. I got the fairing off, headlight out, took the gauges off. They're right here. They'll probably end up in the trash because they're garbage. So everything's off. We're ready to put the new ones on. I pulled all the wires through here. Yellow one is, both of those yellow ones, left and right turn signal. The green ones are the neutral light. The blue ones are the high beam. This red one is a Mickey Mouse oil light that I had just kind of sitting in there, but it worked. And then there's the wires from the other side, right here, red and black, connect to this brown. Those are the illumination lights for the Tach and the Speedo. They are the backlight. Alright, so here we are, all disassembled. I'm going to start putting it back together. Well, I'm going to put the new gauges on and run the wires through, but that's the hard part, is getting all the wires hooked back up again. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so there's a few things going on here. I set this down in here. I just ran the wires down through there, and I tried to set it in here. If you set it on top of the, what do you call this thing, the triple crown, see the holes where it sits? It's a little bit crooked at the top right here. So I thought it would be better to put it underneath, like that. And then this part looks better. That's important to me. So that's one thing. So when I think I got to take this little rubber goodie out of here, and then it'll fit down tighter. But it's really a tight fit. And one of the reasons is because it hits the brake right here. It's also hitting the brake hose down there just a little bit. So I loosened up the brake bolts, the ones that hold the thing on right here. And I've just kind of got to move it around so that I can get it to the place where I can fit a bolt in there. But it's going to be real tight. That's because we went with the shorter bars, so you can't slide the brake out any further because of the bar end mirror. Neener, 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 neener. Also, a small problem was the clutch cable was just, it was in the way. It was going from here straight through here. I'm probably going to put it right back in the same spot, but it'll be in the way of the key a little bit. It's going to kind of go like, I mean, it's going to go dead across the key, but it's loose so you can move it. Had to remove this so you could get the clutch cable off. Here's a clutch cable over here. And it's over there. It's buried in there somewhere. And then another minor little thing was this choke cable. It's kind of tight going around here. It's going behind this goodie right here for the headlight. So I'm going to disconnect the choke from right here and then run it on the outside of this so there's not so, it's tight right here going behind there. So I'm going to fix that. And also the back of the gauges looks like crap, and I'm not able to leave it that way. So I'm going to take it in the house and clean it up and bring it back, and then I'll be back. Okay, everything is back on. The gauges are mounted. I got them tightened down real good. You can see the clutch cable go right in front of the key, but the key still works, so whatever. The clutch is fine. And this is actually, I didn't forget to tighten this up, but since the gauges are tight, And this still has some play in it. That's good. It's not so tight that I have to worry about it. So I'm just going to tighten these two nuts up right here, and that'll be fine. I reinstalled the clutch down here. I ran all the wires through the headlight. Man, we got a nest of wires going on here. That's the fun part. So we did the easy part. I'm going to put the fairing back on, and then all it is a matter of wiring up all the lights. Easier said than done. The tricky part's going to be, I think, the gas gauge, and the gear position indicator probably shouldn't be a big deal. It's just a matter of finding the right wires and hooking them up. And we should have a functioning speedometer. There it is, connected, and tachometer at this point. They're both connected. Haven't checked them yet. Haven't had it out because of all these wires hanging here. Okay. Haha. Oh yeah, one more thing. Cleaned up pretty good. It's okay if things are a little Mickey Mouse, but they can't be disgusting. I got the fairing back on there, and it looks pretty good. It actually looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. Nice. Alright, I ran this wire straight over to the battery, so it's a hot wire, and I connect it here, and the high beam indicator comes on. So that means this yellow wire is high beam, and then this random long loose wire I thought was the neutral light. It's not. It was a minute ago. Okay, weird. That one connector plugged right in to the blue one instead of the white one. We got indicators, turn signals, and we got the back lighting, which looks very cool. But see that big red light? That's the oil light. But look, when you put it in gear, it goes out. So that means it's actually the neutral light hooked up to the wrong place somehow. So we need to play with that for a little bit. Okay, so it is. I got this connected in the video. I mean the video. The neutral light is on now. I think that if I turn on the key though, it'll go out. Let's see what happens. Yeah, something is going on in there. That's a grounding thing. One of the wires that I have connected as hot probably is the other side, the ground side. So that's going to take a little troubleshooting. Alright, I don't want you to get lost in the weeds here, but the neutral light works. Because we determined that that random blue wire, that long one, this one, was the neutral light up there. And so we had the blue wire here, the blue wire here, the neutral light. With the old harness, the old harness is the blue wire going through. The new harness, it's a different one. It's the oil light. See that? The green and yellow stripe, green with the yellow stripe right there is the oil light on the new gauges. If you look at the oil light, remember my oil light? If you follow the red wires over here, green with a yellow stripe. That's interesting. I don't know why it's different than in the two different size spikes, but who cares? We figured it out. So the blue goes through to the blue, and neutral light works. So now we're going to work on the high beam. This is the high beam, the yellow ones. So now we'll work on. Okay, the reason I was worried about getting into the weeds is because I'm getting into the weeds. Alright, so I was going to do the high beam, but no, we're not going to do the high beam yet. First we got to do the oil light, because we cut it right here to get the neutral light to work. So now the oil light, green with a yellow stripe. Here's the oil light, green with the yellow stripe right here. Is getting its power from this connector right here. So we should be able to plug this connector back in, which has all the headlight stuff anyway. So we're going to plug this back in and then jump this wire over to there, and the oil light should work. Okay, that worked. So we have neutral. Push it down, goes out of neutral. See? Put it back in gear. The oil light is on. We try and start it. See, the motor starts to spin, the oil pump starts to work, and the oil light goes out. So that's working. And I don't know if I showed you before, but we have turn signals that are also working. Sweet. I'm going to do the high beam last. I said I was going to do that already, but I'm going to do it last because the headlight goes in last. So maybe now we can work on the gear position indicator. I did touch it with the high voltage, or the 12 volt the voltage, and they did come on. These little guys down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's play with that now for a little bit, see if we can't get something to happen there. I touched each of these tabs in here with the 12 volts, and this is the cable for the gear position indicator. And see how long it is? It's really long. I think I'm remembering that it came out of the harness. So I'm going to have to take off the gas tank and look to see. This probably runs back into the underneath the tank and plugs in back there someplace. Makes sense, close to the transmission. And then I think, I'm not positive, but I think these two are going to be the fuel gauge, and that's going to be the same deal. These are going to have to go back that way to the gas tank. So I'm going to take off the gas tank and start troubleshooting in there. Look at that. So with the tank off, there's the connector right there. So we're going to run that other one, that harness cable that I pulled through the headlight. We're going to run it down through here, plug it in right there, and it should totally work. Alright, so I ran it through there. Here it goes. Plugs right in. Look, we got second gear, neutral, first gear. Gear position indicator works. So historically the headlight has been kind of a pain in the butt. But we determined that this yellow wire was the high beam indicator on the dash, and so I just ran it over here to see this blue wire from the old gauges. Blue was the blue indicator light, and it goes over here to this yellow wire, and that yellow wire goes to the headlight connector. So I just took a shot that yellow went to yellow, and I hooked it up that way with the jumper, and it worked. Now the high beam indicator works when you hit the high beams. So now the next thing we got to do is solder all those connections, and then put some zip ties, and this goes underneath this clamp right here, or bracket or whatever. And then these boots down here that hold the carburetors onto the cylinder heads, cylinders I should say, need to be replaced. There's a vacuum leak, and they need to replace so that because the idle's a little bit rough, it kind of goes up and down. And so I'm going to replace those next, and then I'll work on the fuel gauge because it's underneath the gas tank, and when I put the gas tank back on, then I'll work on that, and then we should pretty much be wrapped up. Hopefully we can get the fuel gauge to work without a whole lot of trouble. There it is right there. And there's a couple of wires. I think these are them. So that'll be our next project after we get things tightened up here. Alright, the next thing we got to do is solder these connections and put shrink tubing over the soldered parts. And then we're going to run that cable and kind of zip tie it in place, and then just kind of clean things up a little bit, and then we'll start working on the fuel gauge. Make sure to solder all your connections that aren't going through a connector, and then put heat shrink on there, and then get your heat gun out and heat the shrink tubing so that it shrinks all the way down, makes a nice tight fit. So this yellow wire, you remember that this yellow wire was the high beam indicator, the blue light. And so this yellow with black wire that was running right next to it has got to be the low side, the ground side to that indicator, although it does work. And then I'm cutting wires and getting rid of the bulk of the stuff that's in here, and I find this one is, see, it's blue with black. That's the low side of the high beam indicator on the old gauges. So this is a high beam ground, and that's the high beam ground. So I connected the two of them together, and it still worked. So I'm just going to connect them, and then we'll plug in the headlight and see that everything still works. Okay, so the headlight still works. There's two filaments on in there, so that's the high beam. And that one looks like it's at least at the same brightness, but there's only one filament on in there. So I mean, it acts like a headlight. We really reduced the amount of wires that were coming out of there this morning. And everything works with the exception of the fuel gauge. So I'm not going to put it back together until we get the fuel gauge worked out. Check this out. See that backing lights came on. The oil light is on. Watch. Gear position indicator. First gear. Look, it's in neutral. Trying to start the motor. Oil light goes out. High beam. No beam. Left, right, yeah buddy. Next we'll work on the intake manifold, fix that vacuum leak and get the thing idling right, and then we'll work on the fuel gauge and then put it all back together.